Hey, the board meeting in session. Come to order. State House Majority Leader John Deal, late scratch.
Freedom.
He's stuck on the tarmac, from what I understand.
Yeah.
Domino's is delivering him pizza.
He's been Middlebrooked.
However, he claims it was Emo's. We'll get to that controversy at some point.
Obstruction.
So,
Provel.
no John Deal. However, I will be holding the flag up for House Majority Speaker in Waiting John Deal. With us from the editorial page of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Tony Messenger. Good morning.
Good morning, McGraw. Good to be here.
And former Chief of Staff of Governor Holden and local gadfly and attorney Jane Duker. Good morning, Jane Duker.
Good morning, McGraw.
Final thoughts on our beloved St. Louis Cardinals. We'll start with you, Tony Messenger.
Sad loss, but if one of the hardest things to do in sports, and it's easier for me because I didn't grow up here. So
Yeah.
but one of the hardest things to do in sports is to go back and look at what were your expectations at the beginning of the season. Where were you in the middle part of the season? And as we, when the team starts rolling and all of a sudden gets to where it looks like they've got a shot to win the World Series, obviously everybody, that's what everybody wants. But this team probably overperformed where a lot of the expectations were, and when you look at that young pitching staff, I think there are some questions in terms of some of the position players about who's coming back next year and where they will put out a search warrant for some bats or something. But when you look at that young pitching staff, both in the pen and starters, and looks good for next year. You got to turn the page and start looking for next year. It's exciting.
My only angst in all of this is that these people who think somehow the season was a failure and the team is terrible and Matheny doesn't know what he's doing. I mean, the guy is in the second year of managing, and he's one game away from the World Series last year. He's in the World Series this year.
Next year he wins.
Let's just enjoy the fact that it was such a great year, right? I mean, they didn't win, okay, but being in the World Series is actually a lot of fun, and it was a great ride.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I was despondent last night because, I am a lifelong St. Louis, and the Cardinals are my life. And but I also think, too, what Mike Matheny has done with this squad, I mean, there's a lot of talent and there's a lot of challenges, and he had to balance a lot of things. We're going to look back and we're going to find things that maybe could be done differently, or find things that we can supplement, or and that'll all come out in the off season. But I agree. I think they overachieved. I think we should be proud. I think not only should we be proud of how they performed on the field, but this is a class team. And we are known around baseball and around this country as being a class franchise, and it's something that St. Louis should be very proud of, and I am very proud of it.
And we'll just wrap it with a bow with this. The last time the Boston Red Sox won a World Series in Fenway, Woodrow Wilson was the president.
That's right.
The last time the Cardinals won a World Series in St. Louis, President Obama was sitting in the Oval Office.
Exactly.
So
I like where we're sitting.
All right, good. All right, let's get to a story, Tony Messenger, that came out earlier in the week. Sort of got buried a little bit because of the World Series, but it's sort of been out there for a while. The Supreme Court ruled in a 5-2 decision that a Missouri highway patrolman, while doing his job on Christmas Day in 2009, was hit by a car and died. His life partner wanted his benefits that any married couple would get, but since they weren't married, longtime same-sex partners, the Supreme Court ruled that the partner should not be given the benefits that a married spouse would be given in a similar situation. Your thoughts, Tony Messenger?
My initial thought is that it's a tragedy, and it is a continuing sign that this state in particular, and a variety of states, have just completely missed the boat on the constitutional protection of equal protection under the law. And as we wrote in our editorial today at stltoday.com, this will change. In our lifetimes, this will change. In our lifetimes, in every single state, gay people will have the right to marry, and they will be protected equally under the law. What's interesting about this case in particular, if you read the case, and I read a lot of Supreme Court decisions, and sometimes they're dry and sometimes they're hard to read. This one isn't hard to read. Either the 5-2 decision against Kelly Glossop or the dissent from Judge Titleman, and it's really worth a read to go to the CaseNet site and find the Supreme Court decision and read it. We've linked it, I believe, in our editorial today. But the decision turned on a very narrow part of the law in which the state trooper's partner didn't actually challenge the constitutional provision in the state against gay marriage, but challenged the part that said, "Hey, look, we weren't married, but we basically were, and I deserve that money." And the court said, well, no, because a heterosexual couple that's living together but not married wouldn't get it either. And I can understand on that narrow part of the law where the court came down. That being said, the dissent by Judge Titleman is a bit of a history lesson. And a bit of a document that looks forward to what our future is going to be in Missouri, in which he says, look, fellow jurists, it doesn't matter that he didn't challenge the Constitution, because we know that he couldn't have been married. Whether they wanted to or not, he couldn't have been married in Missouri because we're that discriminatory, and this has to end, and it should serve as a rallying cry. That dissent by Judge Titleman should serve as a rallying cry for all people who want to protect equal rights in this state to say, you know what, it's time to end this. People should be allowed to marry the people that they love and have the same rights that my wife and I have.
Jane Duker.
Well, and I thought the opinion was actually well written on both sides, and so it is an interesting read. And I agree with Tony that it's something that even non-lawyers ought to read. And I think what I really appreciated, and I understand that the majority said, look, on the narrow law, we're not this law is not discriminating based on sexual orientation. It's discriminating based on the fact that you weren't married. But what I really
it's
admire,
kind of a catch-22.
It is, and that's what Judge Titleman pointed out, and that's what I really appreciated is when you get to the Supreme Court. You know, this isn't just, it's not just about, following, their own precedent. I mean, they have a lot more leeway, but he really shined a light on the fact that, let's face it, guys, this is about discriminating against gay people. Okay, that's what this is. And he did the substance over the form, which, sometimes judges aren't able to do and don't do well. And he did it exceedingly well, saying, let's face it, this is what it is. And it shouldn't matter, how it was exactly presented, because we have the ability from a legal standpoint and otherwise to say this is about challenging the provision that prevents gay people from getting married. And now I understood that, he was very he was forward thinking, and it was less lawyerly than usual.
Is this the end of this, or are they kicking this up even higher?
I mean, they could. I mean, it's a pretty state law issue, so I don't think it gets picked up by the United States Supreme Court.
Right.
But face it, this is the first decision. This is by no means the last, and I think that's what Judge Titleman was forecasting.
And I think
the case is going to be presented correctly at some point, and that's what it's going to look like.
What you're starting to see across the country, and frankly, we talked about this on this show, on the board meeting a few weeks ago after the Supreme Court decision on gay marriage. And you saw it in New Jersey already, and you're going to start to see it state by state, where plaintiffs are going to find the right set of circumstances,
right plaintiff, right law,
that fits the Supreme Court decision on DOMA that says that you basically can't discriminate. There must be equal protection under the law, and state by state, Supreme Courts are going to overturn prohibitions against gay marriage as they find the right sorts of decisions. And here's the thing this is just so easy to deal with politically. The business community is so far ahead of the political community,
yes,
because the business community
gives
knows,
same-sex partners rights.
Yes,
and
the business community
benefits
needs to attract employees.
That's right.
And they need from a pool of employees to not be able to discriminate against gays or straight people or whatever. And so the business community is way ahead, including the conservative business community is way ahead of the Republican Party and some conservative Democrats on this issue. It is going to be resolved. The Supreme Court's already set it in motion, and more cases like this, state by state, will just start to come forward. And when they find the right plaintiff and the right circumstances, state prohibitions, we may never vote on it in Missouri again because we don't need to, because
That's
the Supreme Court's going to overturn it for us.
So in this state of Missouri, if you're a police officer and you get killed in the line of duty, your same-sex partner, which nobody questioned, they were longtime partners and would have been married except for the law didn't allow it, they're not allowed the benefits.
Correct.
And yet right down the road, say in Fort Leonard Wood, because it's a
Military
federal base, the military has just announced that they're going to allow a soldier who is stationed at Fort Leonard Wood to leave the base, go to a state where they can be legally married to a same-sex partner, get married in that state, and then move back to Missouri into Fort Leonard Wood.
And that sort of circumstance was foreshadowed in this opinion. When they were saying what wasn't presented by the case, one of the things that wasn't presented was that this couple, didn't try to go to another state and then come and have Missouri recognize that marriage.
Right.
And I think they were sort of forecasting, hey guys, here's
What
the right
happens?
here's the right set of facts and the right plaintiff and the right circumstances that will put this right at issue. So
Really interesting
forward
stuff.
thinking.
All right, that's Tony Messenger, Jane Duker. We're back. We got lots more to get to. Big 550 KTRS and STL924. Big 550 KTRS, the board meeting back in session. John Deal is sitting on a tarmac somewhere, not able to attend. Editorial page editor of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, Tony Messenger, and attorney, former chief of staff to Governor Holden, Jane Duker. Jane, the story came out this morning that the Archdiocese of St. Louis says no more alcohol for sporting events directed at kids.
Yeah, well, I guess, any Catholic event that's sort of directed at kids, it's not real clear as to what that means. I don't get it. It's sort of like a solution, in search of a problem. So, I think
You
a lot
can't go a kid's soccer game without downing a couple beers?
you can, but I mean, it's always been a source of revenue for the parishes. I mean, the parishes are struggling. I mean, all the schools are struggling right now, the Catholic schools, and
Right.
they're looking for ways. And, I mean, I just don't see, I guess, what they're trying to address. Has there been an issue? Has there been parents who've acted inappropriately?
I'm sure there have been.
Yeah, but I mean, any more than than usual. A lot of times, beer trucks and beer is donated for parish events. So does that mean that the parish fall party now can't have alcohol? And that stuff's donated, and they make a lot of money off of it. I mean, obviously the church isn't a democracy, so they get to decide what they want to do and when they want to do it. And there's not anything the parishes or anyone else can do. I don't see why it's needed, and I don't see how they're going to replace the revenue.
Do you find it interesting that he did it? This is in effect starting Friday, so that means Halloween is not affected.
Right.
So any church Halloween party, you can still drink your alcohol.
Yeah, but most of those have already taken place. I guess I just don't know why. I don't get it. It seems short-sighted to me. So I think it's, I don't know. I don't think it makes the church look great. I don't think they're going to get any credit for it. I don't think people are going to say, oh, wow, they've taken care of a problem. Wow, the priest abuse stuff is over now that we don't have alcohol at kids' events. I mean, there's issues that need to be addressed by the Archdiocese, and on the triage list, I don't see how this one hits the top.
Tony Messenger?
I am fascinated by this story, and for a couple of reasons. I was born and raised Catholic, and I attend a non-denominational Christian church now, but I've never lived anywhere except for here in St. Louis in which there was alcohol at youth sporting events. And so I find
Oh, well, when you put it that way.
I find it to be fascinating.
You sound judgmental.
It's part of the culture here. I live in Wildwood, and my kid plays youth sports every season, and not through the Catholic associations, but through the local. We go to Ellisville Athletic Association for his baseball games, or out to Chesterfield, out by the levee that's going to flood someday, by the way. And there's always beer at these events in my kids' games, and sometimes I partake and sometimes I don't. Many of the parents do frequently. My wife has volunteered, because sometimes when you sign your kids up, you've got to do some volunteer, and she's noticed, there's times when she's there in which a few adults partake too much. So I mean, maybe this will be good for the Ellisville Athletic Association because all the Catholic parents will now be ticked off. And I just say, those of you who are good baseball players, give me a call. I know a team. We could, you can come to Ellisville and have your beer. Forget the CYA. Come out west and play ball with us.
Well,
But
what's interesting is they're only prohibiting the sale. So it's not like
no, they're saying you can't bring it either.
Can't bring it in.
Okay,
either.
good.
So,
Okay.
Gee, little
I mean,
troublemaker.
my initial reaction
I was raised in a Catholic school. I'm always looking for ways to get around the rules.
My initial reaction is it's really no big deal, and you don't really need alcohol around youth events. But by the same token, I haven't seen it myself be that much of a problem. The bottom line is, parents don't need to be drunk to be jerks at little kids' sporting events,
Absolutely.
and so they're still going to.
And alcohol's usually not the problem
Whether
there.
or not they're drunk or not, there's still going to be problems at youth sports events. But I do find it fascinating that it's part of the St. Louis culture, and it's part of the Catholic parish culture. It's part of the Anheuser-Busch culture. It's a part of what this city clearly has that makes it different than any other place I've ever lived. And I guarantee you that's the talker of the day. That's what people all around this city are talking about. And if I can't get my beer at my kid's CYA game, then he's going to play somewhere else, darn it, and my parish priest is going to hear about it. It's fascinating.
What about when, say, the St. Patrick's Center has their big giant trivia night? There's a bunch of kids running around there. What about when St. Louis University plays basketball? Is that considered a
Well, it depends archdiocese. I mean, that's the other complicated structure of, we have a lot of Catholic institutions that aren't necessarily archdiocesan. So it's not going to be as clear as a bell as to.
It will be now.
It will be now. But yeah, so there's, St. Louis University is not archdiocesan. So doesn't matter.
So drink up.
Yeah, well, I guess they decide, right?
Right,
So, can I say it's an awful thing? No, I just don't know why it was needed now and what problem they were trying to solve.
Let me back up the Catholic Church here for a moment. I applaud them. I think it's fantastic. I don't know if you're going to a little kids event or a junior high event or a CYO game or a CBC game or whatever else. Do you really need to be down in a couple beers while you're watching the deal? I get, hey, you know what? You had a long day. You're cooling off. You're watching your kid. But you don't necessarily have to have a beer while you're watching the kids. Meanwhile, the kids are watching the parents. And so, maybe
But
it's
they're watching their parents at the Cardinals game. Now you're going to cut off alcohol there.
But you know what? But
come on.
But no. Your kids are watching you. My kids who might not know or might not be exposed to the drink are watching you as well. So it isn't just your kids watching. Your kids know how to drink and have a drink on Thanksgiving, and that's fine. But you're also exposing other kids who aren't exposed to that to the drink.
See, now you're taking this to a
Wow,
whole new level
very
that's blowing my mind because now I'm
Wow.
thinking about McGraw having kids and it's scaring the heck
Well,
out of me.
that's- okay.
Look,
Whoa.
that's just let's try to bring this back to reality a little
Big
bit.
Brother's watching, and his name is McGraw.
I have done the world a service so far, not getting married and having no children.
I'm taking the conservative approach here. That's just wow. Welcome to paternalism, McGraw. Anything else you want to?
I've always had a Calvinistic streak in me.
Whew.
9:30 here on the Big 550 KTRS. Lots more to get to. The board meeting is in session, minus John Deal. John, I'm holding up the flag for you. Back in a moment, the Big 550 KTRS.
Live in the morning on KTRS. This hour is presented by Weber Chevrolet, with 4 locations to serve you. Online at WeberChevrolet.com.
9:36, Big 550 KTRS. The board meeting is in session. No John Deal, though. John will be. I'm holding up the mantle for you. Tony Messenger with the editorial page, and Jane Duker, former chief of staff of Governor Holden. I was speaking with a doctor yesterday. I had a conversation with a prominent doctor, which if I were to mention the name, everybody would know. And they said that the level of misinformation of the patients walking through the door about the Affordable Care Act is staggering, to the point where this doctor is trying to explain to people. This doctor keeps getting asked from patients, "Are you going to accept Obamacare?" Like it's Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and or Obamacare, where you're going to get a card with President Obama and 2 thumbs up. And that's your insurance card.
Right.
This doctor said the level of misunderstanding and that nobody knows what's going on with the Affordable Care Act. And this doctor said that it is the number one problem going forward. She said, lots of things are going to change, but no one's arguing and no one's debating the facts when it comes to the Affordable Care Act.
Or being legitimate about what is going to change and what isn't. I mean, you know, there's a lot of focus on the website, and yeah, that's a big issue. And that's, I mean, but that sort of government stuff happens outside of this issue. So, I mean, it's a nice distraction.
It's been a month long.
It is, and you know, I can't defend that. I mean, it should have been taken care of. They should have done a better job. But let's get back to the substance here of why are we fighting about getting people on insurance who need to be on insurance? I mean, and what people don't understand about Obamacare is all it does is allow people. It's a consumer protection device. It is so that people who do not have insurance can go and shop insurance with fair information, with disclosures as to what is covered, with better information than you would ever receive now.
All from private companies.
All from private companies. There is no such thing as Obamacare insurance. What it is just a place where citizens can go and shop the market to get the best deal from private insurance companies for health care insurance. This was something that was proposed to actually, Matt Blunt in 2007 proposed that we do this in Missouri. It was like one vote away from having healthcare exchanges in Missouri under a Republican-dominated legislature with a Republican
who stopped
governor.
it? The Democrats.
No, actually it wasn't. It was a Republican, and it was a procedural issue that had nothing to do with the issue on exchanges, because everyone realizes that it is impossible for a normal citizen to go out on their own and get insurance. Now, with the insurance exchanges, the pool is very big, which makes prices lower. I mean, that's exactly how this is supposed to work from a private, it's a private market solution.
Okay, but we are hearing from the very first people who are getting through this that if you liked your own insurance, you could keep it. All sorts of people are getting letters. Your insurance policy is being canceled. And they're also hearing that they're going to charge more and their deductible is going to be higher.
Well, they're hearing it. You're hearing some anecdotal evidence. I mean, right now, you know, you can go on to the website or call or whatever. I know the website's a challenge. But all of those, all the coverage things, all the things that are required are all there, and they're all fully disclosed. So I think before people assume that their coverage is going to be worse, they don't even check it out. I'm not hearing the anecdotal evidence of people who are, you know, saving a lot of money and getting insurance where they didn't have any before.
Here's the other thing about those anecdotal stories. 5% of the national insurance market, 5% is people in the individual market. Mm-hmm. It's only a percentage of those people that are being canceled.
Right.
And they are being canceled because the individual insurance policy that they had was crap and no longer fits the standard.
Correct.
And when they go to the exchange, they will find, in most cases, based on the reporting that I've read, that they will be able to get a better policy, and many of them will still be able to get that better policy for less. But here's the most fascinating thing about the Obamacare thing as it relates to a state like Missouri. Here is a state in which our lawmakers, particularly our Republican lawmakers, hate the federal government. They hate the federal government more than almost anything. And what did they do? They allowed the federal government to build our exchange because they didn't want to do it, because doing it might have allowed a future primary opponent to say they were pro-Obamacare. So rather than doing the anti-federal government thing, which would have been, we don't trust you because you're going to mess up your website, we're going to do it ourselves and make sure that insurance companies have to follow our state-specific rules. Instead of doing that, they allowed the federal government to do it. And here's what's happening. In the states that built their own exchanges, they're working.
Right.
And so Missouri has Missouri to blame for having a problem with this website. One other thing that I think is significant is yesterday Kathleen Sebelius apologized. It was too late. She should have apologized earlier. She should have let the president know earlier that the website was simply not going to work. The day before that, the head of Medicaid Services apologized. The president has now said he's taken responsibility and it's going to work. It is going to work. 6 months now, this isn't going to be an issue and the Republicans will have moved on to something else. But here's the thing. You can't be critical of the fact that the website isn't working and critical of the administration that the website isn't working while all you've done as a Republican in Congress is try to sabotage the website and sabotage the program. Here's what I want to hear from Republicans now that the Obama administration, again, I agree with Jane, too late, but is apologizing. What Republican has apologized for the shutdown? What Republican has apologized for the debt ceiling debacle? When has a Republican apologized for Iraq? When has a Republican apologized for giving us Ted Cruz? The fact is, we are going to get past this. This is a government problem, a governing problem, and it will get better, and people will end up with more insurance than they have now.
Which helps all of the insured population. I would like my insurance rates to stop skyrocketing because I'm covering uninsured care at higher rates because people go to the emergency room because they won't go to a doctor because they don't have insurance.
All right, let's talk about this website for a second. The fact that no one's telling us what's wrong leads me to
too
believe
big.
Too many people are hitting it.
No. It's too big in that. And I heard Senator McCaskill have a very good discussion about it, about
Yesterday on the show.
Yeah. And it you know, having been in state government and knowing how the IT systems work, I mean, unfortunately, IT systems in the federal government were not built with one system that everybody follows. It's not possible. There's silos of IT systems. So making sure that this website can interface with every single government agency, state, that's the challenge. And so to do everything it's supposed to do, what I think is they probably oversold what the website would do. And that's a major problem. I think if it were simplified, but then you'd need a lot more people and whatnot to check.
It wasn't like the bill was passed a month ago.
No, you're absolutely
this is
right.
passed 4.5 years ago.
And they had years to get this done right.
Right,
I
and
mean,
so
this is a government.
So it goes
debacle.
up. It goes up
agree.
live October 1.
Yes.
It's not working, but they can fix it all within a month, 6 weeks, while they've had 3 years to get it right.
Correct. That is an issue.
Yeah.
And stuff like that happens in government all the time.
All right. It's one thing to apologize for the website. Do you think President Obama should apologize when he said that if you like your health insurance, you can keep it? Was that an incorrect statement when he said it?
No, because, the benefits are better. So, for example, and this is what's really ironic about the Republicans' argument, too. They just passed in Missouri recently, and which I supported, mandating coverage for autism services, which I think is absolutely
Scott Rupp.
necessary. Well, and
Republican was
Eric Schmidt.
Right.
Which I think is a good thing.
Forcing me and my insurance to pay
cover
more.
autism.
Right.
Which I agree with. Okay.
Which is a very Obamacare-ish.
It is a very Obamacare-ish
Pushed
thing.
by Republicans in Missouri.
Yeah.
Pushed by Republicans in Missouri. And so now in Missouri, if you cannot sell a policy without autism coverage. Okay. That's the rule. Okay. Well, some of these policies that people are currently operating under are substandard because they do not have coverages that are mandated. Okay, so when you say if you like your insurance coverage, you're not gonna do worse than what you have. So I don't think it's misleading people to say you're gonna have insurance coverage that is equal, but more likely better than what you have now. And insurance companies who do not want to step up and provide the coverage that's required, then they don't get to be in the market. Just like in Missouri, if you are an insurance company and you don't want to cover autism services, you can feel free to leave the state of Missouri and not sell policies here. And nobody's blaming the insurance companies that said we don't want to cover autism. Nobody's out there bashing any insurance company for leaving Missouri or not writing policies because they don't want to cover autism.
It was autism.
It's no different.
It was autism as a pre-existing condition, so therefore you couldn't insure a child who had autism because it was considered a pre-existing condition.
But it's still the market. They're still telling the market what they can and can't sell, and nobody is saying, "Oh my God, this insurance company," and "Oh my God, we were lied to by the General Assembly in Missouri because now my policy, my insurance company is not writing this policy anymore, and so this is unfair." I mean, it's completely a double standard.
Which is
we
why
do this all the time.
What I don't understand also then is, while we're on this subject, is when they say we'd like to sell policies across state lines. So in Illinois, they mandate certain things that Missouri doesn't mandate. So like they would force insurance companies in Illinois, and I'm making this up, to cover birth control pills.
Okay.
But in Missouri, they wouldn't. And so they want to be able to sell things across state lines. But anyone who sells in Illinois certainly has the right to sell in Missouri, right?
Absolutely.
So I don't understand this.
It's
We
no
like to
different than
sell
the
across
market.
state lines.
This is what the big joke is. This is not any different than what the market is now. I mean, right now, that problem exists whether there's Obamacare or not. And it exists over property insurance, car insurance. Every state has different mandates and whatnot for insurance, and insurance companies have done just fine. This does not alter that market. So your complaints are not about Obamacare. They're about insurance in general. But that doesn't change here. They're not displacing the private market.
But President Obama was incorrect when he said, if you like your insurance, he didn't say no matter how bad your insurance
No, he didn't
is.
say no.
He said, if you like your insurance, you can keep it.
He was incorrect for some consumers, no doubt about it, as it relates. If you're going to take, if we're going to govern by soundbite, which is what the Republicans want to do, he built it. Then yes, he was incorrect for that. The president's biggest failure, and this goes back to what is happening to your doctor, and admittedly, the president's had to fight.
Is
the
explaining.
entire Republican establishment and Fox News and people that are specifically trying to misinform
Willfully
as a
ignorant.
strategy,
Right.
as a strategy to sabotage this law, which is just disgusting and one of the worst things I've seen in political discourse in my lifetime. But that being said, the president's failure on this is that he hasn't done from the beginning a great job of explaining it. And he's
Right.
had several different big speeches in which he's come out to try to, meet with consumers and have them stand behind him in the Rose Garden and sort of hit the reset button and try to explain it. And ultimately, he hasn't done a great job of that. And that's one reason why there's so much misinformation out there. That's the biggest part of his failure in this is he didn't want to think that when it started, the president thought, I shouldn't have to sell this to the American public. It's so obviously a good idea. It's so obviously based on many Republican principles. And it is. I mean, it's like yesterday, him giving a speech in Massachusetts
You're right.
talking about Romney Care. But he didn't realize that this is national politics, baby. You got to sell it.
Last question. Senator McCaskill was on the show yesterday. She said because Missouri rejected the Medicare expansion, Medicaid expansion, that rural Missouri hospitals will close, and it'll make it harder for rural Missourians to get the health care they need. Was
Absolutely.
she demagoguing, or is that accurate?
No, that's accurate. Missouri is really setting itself up for some major problems with healthcare, and I'm nervous too because I think that's been sort of the goal is that let's destroy it and then prove that it doesn't work. And yeah, I mean there's going to be access issues. People sort of misunderstand that all the Medicaid recipients are in the urban areas. They're not in Missouri. And so the problem is you really, in rural, when you have to go 20 miles already to get to a hospital to get certain kinds of care or specialized care, if hospitals can't survive, you're talking major access problems.
Because there's not an access problem in the St. Louis metropolitan area.
No, there is
or
not.
Or the Kansas City.
Nope.
Right. The access problem is in rural Missouri
Correctly.
today.
Yes,
And
exactly.
you're saying that because they've rejected this federal money, it's going to get worse.
It's going to get far worse, and you're going to see. And not only is it going to be just regular care, it's going to be specialized care. There's going to be no incentive for doctors to go to rural Missouri. There's not going to be facilities, and otherwise, it's going to be a major problem.
Go to the Post-Dispatch website and search Jim Doyle and find Jim Doyle's reporting on this issue. He's been to the rural hospitals. He's talked to the administrators. He's looked at the numbers.
They've said
They're
it.
already shedding jobs. That's not Senator
not a threat.
McCaskill or anybody else
Right.
demagoguing. That's the reality.
That's Tony Messenger, Jane Duker.
If you
Parting
missed
shots
any
next
or,
on KTR. Any portion of the board meeting, first of all, shame on you. Second of all, you can go to STLtoday.com, and it'll be there in all of its glory, and you can go to the opinion page, and you can watch it. It'll be posted there as well as KTRS.com. No John Deal. Tony Messenger with us along with Jane Duker. I stole this from a tweet I saw earlier this morning, but I think it is quite interesting and quite ironic, funny, is that there will be no World Series championship T-shirts and hats St. Louis Cardinals 2013 sold in St. Louis because they didn't win. They get printed up, and if they're not used, they are then donated, not in America, but those shirts. You know how when the Red Sox win, and all of a sudden those World Series Red Sox shirts show up. Well, and then everybody says, "What happened to those? What happened to those T-shirts? Or how'd you get those T-shirts so fast?" They print up both World Series championship Boston and World Championship Cardinals, and the Cardinals, since they cannot be sold legally, they are donated to third world organizations. So now little children in all over the world, third country children, will be wearing World Championship 2013 St. Louis Cardinal T-shirts.
I think that's fabulous.
Well, yeah. I mean, what else are you going to do with them?
Right.
I mean, I don't know if you can recycle them,
But-
but I'd rather have it not go to
But
waste.
so here's what we need to do. Here's what St. Louisans need to do. This would be a total St. Louis thing. We all need to find an organization, Doctors Without Borders, some group somewhere that does some missionary work in the third world, and join it and go with them to do some good work and then pick up some of those shirts and bring them back.
Tony Messenger, Jane Duker, have a
Wow.
good day. We'll do it again tomorrow.